Hello fellow readers, book lovers, and whoever else is watching this. I'm Emily at Midnight. Welcome to my channel. As has so far been my Christmas tradition, I decided to dive into a bunch of books with close to or the same title. This year's theme is The Christmas Swap, a title that I'm sure you've seen at least one Hallmark movie set to, if not a couple. And I saw a couple books on shelves with similar names to this, so here we are. Here's the deal. There are so many books with this title, like so many. Like, let me just name you a few. I'm not going to read all of these. I'm just gonna tell you about them. We've got The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels, The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox, The Holiday House Swap Heart Swap by Lila Bloom, The Christmas Holiday Swap by Tamsin Bracknell, The Christmas Wedding Swap by Allison Charles, The Santa Swap by Ruth Pendleton, and so many more. So I picked 4 of these books. What were my criteria, you ask? Mostly availability, because despite there being so many with these names, some of them are out of print, and so most of these were not on bookshelves. So I found the ones that were easiest to get my hands on in physical form or Kindle. Aside from availability, I also picked these 4 based on how their titles grow together. Listen to this. We have The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels, we have The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox, and The Christmas Holiday Swap by Tamsin Bracknell, and then The Holiday House Swap Heart Swap by Lila Bloom. I mean, that's pretty funny, right? Like, it just keeps growing into more and more of kind of the same name. I think the most appropriate way to discuss the 4 books that I read is to start from the bottom to the top. The book that I got to last, most recently, is The Holiday Heart Swap House Swap by Lila Bloom. And I have a confession to make. I actually only read 3.5 books. That's because this book was, I don't know how to put it, because it's not like it was bad, it was just so over the top. It was fun, and honestly, I might keep reading it. I'm trying to decide if I'm DNFing it or if I'm gonna finish it, but ultimately, it's just so much. This book follows 2 guys who swap houses for December. And I like the premise a lot. We'll see this premise again, hold your horses. There's this other part to it where it's not just that they swap houses for December, but they exchange letters and advice to each other about each other's cities. One of them's in London, the other one's in Vermont, in like a tiny town, and they're just chatting back and forth all over the month of December and start to fall in love with each other. I love that premise. Look, I didn't pick all of them based on availability. This book I specifically found a copy of, okay? I mean, on Kindle, but like, it was not the easiest one to find. I really wanted to read this one and I really wanted to like it. And it was just very unfortunate to me that it came off as very unpolished. Not like the language was unedited or anything, like the grammar was really good. It's just that a lot of the choices didn't make any sense. I felt like they needed to be refined better, which is ironic because one of the characters is actually an editor. And so it's kind of funny to me that it's a storyline that definitely needed a bit of ironing out. A lot of the choices, like I said, don't make a ton of sense. He's an overworked copy editor, and his coworker is convincing him to take a break and swap houses with someone for a month and put in for leave at his work. But the way that she does this is by having already done all of this for him, despite the fact that like his inbox is currently filling with books that he needs to work on in December, but she says she already got him December off from his boss earlier that day. I mean, I don't know what this publishing house is like, but authors don't usually email the copy editors. They usually email a little higher up the chain, and the copy editors get the tasks further down the chain. And so I just found that a little interesting, that he's still getting emails the same day that he supposedly is his last day before his break. It felt a little undercooked, and also like sending someone off on a holiday without really telling them about it when they're just your coworker is, I mean, that would be a reach for a family member, but for a coworker, like, wholly overstepping, right? But when I tell you that that's not the part that's overdone, I think you might kind of laugh, but no, it's true. The part that's overdone is the flirting. See, the guy who lives in Vermont, let's see, I'm reading this book right now, so you'd think I would be able to think of his name. I think it's Julian. Julian's from Vermont, and now he's in London. And he starts like being super flirty right from the get-go, which I feel like is bold when you're doing a business transaction with each other where you're swapping houses, and it could be, you know, a weird situation if you're in someone's house and they make you uncomfortable. But not only that, he apparently does this a lot because he has a guest book in his house that other people have signed and written notes in. And so the vibe that it gives me is like your Airbnb host starts flirting with you because they're texting in the app for, it's not Airbnb, it's like a house swap thing. But like, it's not that, you know? And then Nathaniel, who's the editor, starts flirting back and they're flirting like crazy. And it just like escalates really fast. We're like, where I'm at, we're like a day and a half in. And another thing, at one point, Nathaniel somehow knows from Julian saying, "Your city is loud," that he's having a panic attack and starts like talking him through it via text, like, tell me something you can see, tell me something you can smell, like one of those exercises. And that's so presumptuous. I feel like "your city is loud" is not necessarily a wink wink, I'm having a panic attack line, you know? It just, I don't know, a lot of this could be ironed out. They're cute, but it's so over the top, you know? And so I'm like, do I want to keep reading it just for the campiness of it? But like, you really have to take your disbelief and suspend it out the wazoo, you know? And it's making me cringe a lot. But it's fun, so if you like that kind of thing, you might like this book. But I'm probably gonna DNF it, I think. We'll see. The next book that I read was The Christmas Holiday Swap by Tamsin Bracknell. And this is a book that I can only find on Kindle, so I picked it up and I really liked it. It's really, really short. It's 81 Kindle pages, so like my phone screen pages, so it's really, really, really short. But it was fun. I think maybe its biggest drawback is the fact that it was so short. But let's get into the premise. As I said, the premise of the last book will start sounding familiar because that's the same premise as this book, kind of. It's two people from different cities swapping houses for most of December. In this case, they're both women and they don't fall in love with each other in this one. One of the girls is from London. A lot of these stories were English, oddly enough. Maybe it's because I used holiday as one of my keywords and holiday instead of Christmas a little more popular over there, I'm not sure. But a lot of these were English stories. So there's a girl who lives in London and a girl who lives somewhere else, rural. I don't remember where it was. It wasn't the name of a town I'd heard before. It's super rural in England. We get the city slicker who heads to the countryside and the country girl who goes to the big city. And it's a pretty classic lineup in that way. And it's a really good time. I really liked this book. The girl who goes to the country was a little exaggerated with her like assuming she could wear heels in the mud kind of a vibe, but it wasn't so bad. Like they gave us a chance to see her grow into her countryness very quickly. She just had to kind of get her head around the idea and she starts to fall in love with a handsome farmhand. And then we have our country girl who goes to London and she has a run-in with the city girl's cousin who was coming over to check on the cats. And sparks start flying. Now it's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of symmetry between these two girls, these two main characters, because the reason that the city girl wants to leave is a mixture of like being tired of the mundanity of life and also sort of running from her ex, who is just absolutely refusing to move on or accept the fact that she's broken up with him. And then the country girl is headed to the big city because she's very tired of small town life and just feeling like there isn't room for her to grow. Like, she loves the countryside, but she just feels like being in the same town all along hasn't given her a chance to really spread her wings. And the guy that she's been very secretly in love with for like ever has just gotten engaged to her best friend from high school days, and neither of them told her about it, and so she feels very blindsided and betrayed. So she heads off to the big city to clear her head. I really liked especially the country girl going to the big city plotline because we really got to watch her overcome her imposter syndrome, grow into what is her own style. At first she kind of feels like she needs to take on this city girl style, and then she just uses the boldness that that gives her to try out her own style of clothing, and she really uses it as a chance to redefine herself and be bold. And I would say it's a similar plot for the city girl going to the country, where she does use it as an opportunity to re-examine herself and see if the limitations that she's been putting on herself are realistic and if she can be more than she's given herself a chance to be. This story was great because there wasn't like a weird taboo for why they couldn't date who they wanted to date. Neither of them were pretending to be someone else or anything. They just swapped houses. They didn't swap lives. And so the romances worked out really well. I really, really liked it. I wish I'd gotten more of it because 81 phone screens of story is really, really short, especially to get two romances for the price of one in that short length. That said, This was riddled with typos. I have never read a book more riddled with typos. I was putting a bookmark on the pages that have errors, and it was most of the pages. Like, it was a lot for a published book. And again, it's a short book. I'm sure someone was just writing it to write it and put it out there. But as someone who edits for a living, it was a lot. Okay, that might have been a little bit of an exaggeration. I was just looking through and it's like every 5 pages or something, so not the end of the world, but it is still a lot of typos for a published book. Since I did finish that one, I will rate it, and it's hard because I really, really liked the story, but it was quite imperfect in its writing, and so I think I would probably give it a 4 stars. It was really distracting to have that many errors come up, but I did like it a lot. Up next, we have The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. And now that I'm thinking about it, that bit I said about most of the books being British, perhaps because of holiday being in the name, doesn't make any sense, because the one that's The Holiday Swap, this one, is written by an American author about Americans. So maybe that doesn't hold up, I'm not sure, but that's this book. This one's definitely a proper novel size. We're at 351 pages, and I spent the beginning at least a third of this book trying to decide if I'd made a mistake giving Maggie Knox a second shot or not. If you've seen last year's Christmas video, at least I think it's last year's. It might be the year before that. I'll put it up here. But I read another book by Maggie Knox and I hated it. I mean, I might not have said how much I hated it at the time because I was trying to give a review of the things I liked and didn't like, but the thing is that the lingering feeling of that book is hatred. I really didn't like that book. That's kind of the part that shines through the memory of however long ago that was. I was trying to decide, as I said, if this was a mistake, and ultimately it definitely wasn't. But I learned what specifically I don't like about Maggie Knox writing. I don't like her writing famous people. See, the last book that I read by her was All I Want for Christmas, which I think was that had to have been 2 years ago. Okay, 2 years ago. It was All I Want for Christmas, and it was about these 2 country singers that are on a television show, and just all of the antics around their relationship and the show, all of the drama in their regular lives, all of that I just really hated. I also hated all of the country-isms that she was throwing in that sounded totally made up to me, but it was just this depiction of celebrities and TV and the dynamics of it all that just was not a fun read. Could it have been accurate? Probably. I don't want to be a celebrity, and so that depiction of that life in a very raw sense was just super unappetizing to me. As I said at the beginning of this book, I was trying to decide if I had made a great mistake by reading her again. And the reason I was feeling that way is because this is a book about 2 twin sisters, and one of them is a celebrity chef. And we spend quite a bit of time in the beginning of the book exploring her life as a celebrity chef and this horrible, horrible coworker that she has. He's her co-host on the show and he's so full of himself and so cruel. It basically feels like no one is ever going to correct him or put him in his place, and if she were to, then she would lose her standing. It's a very miserable existence, and he's described as super attractive a whole bunch of times, and so when the plot starts, which is that Charlie, the celebrity chef sister, gets a concussion and for a brief period of time loses her sense of sight and smell. Not sight and smell, taste and smell. Sight and smell would be a lot more dramatic. She can't taste or smell things, and she's a cook, and she's in a baking competition, essentially. There's like tiers to the competition where she and her co-host are always competing, but also there's a whole bunch of other bakers underneath them, like the Great British Bake Off, and they're like Paul Holiday and Prue or something, and then they're judging all of these other bakers. I don't know, I don't really understand how it was structured, but that's what's going on. So she's worried that she's going to lose her opportunity at the next gig. There's going to be another show after this where they're only going to have one of the 2 co-hosts host it, and they're competing for the position. And she's worried that if she backs out now, she'll lose it for good. And so she calls up her twin sister, Cass. Let's see, Charlie is in LA, and her sister is somewhere nearby enough that they're driving, but it's also a small town where it snows. So maybe like in the Sierra Mountains or something. Anyway, Cass runs the family bakery. They've just convinced their parents to take a trip and leave the bakery behind for a brief period of time because it's always been their family legacy to run this bakery, but Cass has really shouldered the responsibility and wants to give her parents a break. So, where Cass would normally be running the bakery and Charlie would be running a TV show, they end up swapping places so that Cass can save Charlie's career from certain doom since she can't smell or taste anything. That leaves Charlie headed back to the small town. I forgot to finish my thought, but the awful co-host had been described as handsome so many times that I was terrified that he was going to be the love interest of the small town sister, Cass, and he'd already been written as such an awful person that I knew I would have to rage quit if he ended up being the lead and the love interest. Luckily, that did not happen, and I finished the book. So we've got a little bit of a similar thing here. It's not exactly a house swap, but it is country to city, city to country. And in this case, they are swapping lives. Now, there's another factor behind this swap, a reason Cass was so willing to do it, not just to help her sister, but also to take a break from her life. She's just broken up with her boyfriend of 10 years, who kept trying to propose to her and like bought a house for them and stuff when they haven't really had a romantic relationship in a couple of years, and he won't face the music about that. They haven't been seeing each other in that way, they haven't been supporting each other, and he's really just keeping the relationship moving for pretenses and hasn't realized it yet. So when Cass breaks up with him, he doesn't really accept it, and it's a lot for her to handle, so she decides this is a good time to step away. Maybe my more assertive twin sister can convince him that yes, this is real, I'm actually breaking up with you. You've known that we have not been in love with each other for a while, you just can't admit it, right? Okay, so that's where things get a little bit interesting. When they swap lives, we do have Charlie, the reality TV star, going home to the country, and she does end up telling off the ex-boyfriend who thinks she's Cass and won't stop following her around. But she accidentally does it in a very dramatic way. If you're gonna read this book, which I do recommend, then I won't spoil it for you. Anyway, dramatics ensue in both the small town and the big city, as you might expect, and it was really enjoyable. I kept finding myself wanting to go back to it more and more once I got past that first, like, fourth or third that felt very much like that other Maggie Knox book that I read that I didn't like as much. But this one does have the interesting dynamic where there kind of are reasons they can't just start dating people, because you see, they're pretending to be each other, so they'd kind of be messing up each other's lives. For example, Charlie goes back to the small town and meets one of Cass's friends who's recently moved into the town, who's a sexy firefighter. Now, in the town, as far as anyone knows, she and her boyfriend of 10 years broke up like yesterday. And Charlie has the absolute hots for this firefighter. And all of a sudden he does too. He's like, whoa, it's like I woke up and just saw you for the first time. We've only been platonic friends till now, but like, now it's all you. And he doesn't know why, but it's because she's a different person. I'm not sure if I believe that plotline, but I'm here for it, you know? So we have that. And it's absolute chaos because her ex, well, her sister's ex, walks in on them kissing one time and other things like that. And so there's kind of some weirdness going on in that way. That's not the only way. See, Cass in the city, pretending to be Charlie, is not only having to do reality TV baking, which she's never done before, and slides into it with surprising grace. Thankfully, she's already a pastry chef, and so this isn't that big of a stretch for her. She does stumble, don't worry, it's not super unbelievable, but she is able to slide into it pretty well, probably because she's been watching her sister. But see, she gets a taste of big city life, and also a very handsome physician's assistant who happened to be the one who treated her sister's concussion just the day before. And this creates some interesting dynamics because they're very flirty, they're very interested in each other. But he's like, oh, I feel a little conflicted over the fact that like, you're confused about things that wouldn't make sense for you to be confused about if you lived in LA, so you might have a worse concussion than I thought you did, and as your doctor, maybe I should not be like fraternizing with you and should just send you back to the hospital. And so he keeps trying to check her out like medically, and she's like, no, I don't have a concussion, it's fine. Because it was her sister that had the concussion, but she can't say that. And so she's like, no, it's really not that bad, trust me. I just don't know when my favorite coffee shop opens for other reasons. So it's pretty comical. I love the comedy of errors of it all. I really enjoyed it, honestly. It's not like my favorite storyline that I would ever pick up because the big city to small town switcheroo is a little cliche in my mind, but that is exactly what I got myself in for, you know? And while Cass is off in the big city figuring out that she can have bigger dreams than just to run the family bakery and be stuck left behind, Charlie, on the other hand, is discovering that she might have fonder feelings for the hometown she only wanted to escape from than she remembered. And in the end, there was a great resolution. It wasn't what I expected. It was pretty close. I thought, well, should I spoil it? Okay, I'll spoil what I thought it was and therefore what it isn't. I thought that the two twins, Cass and Charlie, would end up hosting the one-man show that's coming up. And that isn't how it ended up happening, because someone does have to look after the loaves back in Startown Hollow or something cliche. I don't remember what the small town is called. But that's the story. I liked it. I would recommend it for sure. If you're looking for a cozy, cliche holiday romance, it's a good time. I would give it probably 4 stars as well, just because it wasn't phenomenal. It was a little cliche, but I did really enjoy it. There was that part about it that just didn't jive with me though, and that was the whole reality TV side of it, which is funny because I love reality TV. I think I just hate reading books about people struggling in the industry, if that makes sense. But then again, I do like romances that are all about people falling in love on dating shows. I hold multitudes, apparently, because I can't even melt down what I like into something that I can offer you and say, this is my tastes. But now it is officially time for the 4th and last, that is also the first romance that I read this season. The very first one that I picked up and my favorite is The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels. I really liked this book. I read it on Audible, I think, and I ended up buying it because I liked it so much, and I'm probably gonna reread it this Christmas alone. It's just such a sweet book. It's super swoony and sweet and lovely and very, very heartfelt. But Emily, I don't care about your feelings about the book. Tell me where the swap comes in, I hear you asking. And I will answer it. The main character, Margot, is a social media manager. She manages many companies at the same time, and the CEO of one of her companies is a very shy, kind, and kind of nerdy guy that she's rather fond of. I say fond of because this is another British book, and so I've got to get into the vernacular. Just kidding, if you're from England, I'm sorry. She's just been broken up with by her first and only girlfriend, and she's really struggling with this breakup. She feels a lot of push and pull from her ex-girlfriend, and doesn't super want to go home for the holidays, so she isn't sure where to go. That's when she discovers that one of her clients needs a date for the holidays. He feels insecure going back home year after year as the only one who never brings someone home for the holidays. And so they work up a plan. They're going to fake date. But there's a fun twist because she's a lesbian and he's straight. And so you wonder, how is this going to turn into a romance? And the answer is so fun. When they get to his house, we have a meet cute with Margot and her fake boyfriend's sister that they didn't know would be home yet. And it's such a fun romance. The sister is quite suspicious of Margot. She can't figure out why she's suspicious of Margot, so she's trying to figure it out. What is it about their relationship that doesn't feel quite real? And she comes up with an answer that she's sure is the one. Margot must be a gold digger. It's so funny. So they are super well off. They're going home for the holidays to their family manor. That's a hotel most of the year, but they don't have any guests during the holidays, so they can have the whole manor and grounds to themselves. They're really well off. So for the first part of the book, we have this back and forth with the sister and with Margot, where the sister is kind of trying to bait Margot, trying to figure out what her deal is, but they keep accidentally falling into really comfortable conversation, discovering that they're really similar to each other. Then the sister, whose name is Ellie, keeps discovering just these little hints of things that don't make quite the right amount of sense, where she thinks, no, I think she's definitely a gold digger. And it all devolves into chaos. I really, really liked it. And I think this is, out of all the books, this is the one I think I would recommend the most. This is the one you should go read. I really loved not just the romance, it not only was really believable and interesting, but the family dynamic is so interesting and real. We deal with a lot of things like parental expectations and sibling dynamics where they're putting each other in boxes and not really giving each other room to grow, and then realizing what they've done and reconciling. And we also have a grandfather with dementia, and all of them reckoning with what that means for this beloved figure of their family to start to lose a little bit of himself, and the weight that that puts on all of them. It's so real, it's so heavy, and I've been sitting with it for a long time. But the thing is it's not just heavy. it's also incredibly sweet. And I think that's the thing that is important to remember. When my grandpa had Alzheimer's, there was a lot of heaviness that came with it, but there was also a lot of sweetness because I ended up having so many more afternoons to sit around and talk with him about parts of his life that I hadn't had the chance to talk to him about before. It's not that I got so much more insight into who he was, but life kind of slowed down for us and I got to know him a little bit better. That's what I saw in this book. It was so sweet and I really loved the way that they navigated that relationship. There's also another secret romance that happens in this book that I won't spoil because I really want you to read it. Just a little hint of one extra thing in this book, so look for it. I just really love the way that this book was laid out. It's almost like there was a mystery subplot to it, but not really in the way that you would normally expect. It's not like they were trying to uncover some great mystery, but they were just digging into each other and the people around them and what's going on the property. It was just all very cozy and heartfelt. I really, really liked this book. This book is getting a 5 stars from me. And I swear every year I end up putting a Christmas romance on my all-time favorite bookshelf on Goodreads, and this one might make its way on there. I'm really, really fond of this book. Now, I do these challenges every Christmas where I find books with the same or similar names just because I think it's goofy to see a bunch of different takes on the same storyline, but I'm so glad I did it this year, specifically because I found this book. But that is the end of my reviews. And so I feel like I need to wrap up the concept here. I came to you with a very generic title for all of these books. Something Christmas or holiday swappish, right? And it's funny because I felt like I knew what I was getting into when I picked up that title. It was going to be twins swapping places or swapping houses. And we did get some of that, but a lot of it involved swapping lives and also just swapping perspectives on life. For example, this book doesn't involve anyone swapping lives. It's more of Margot here swapping siblings that she's dating, which is a funny twist all on its own. But I did end up with several very unique premises that wove together in unexpected ways. So it's always so interesting to me to see how a bunch of authors will get the same idea but still execute it in wildly unique and interesting ways. So this has been my review of 4 or maybe 3.5 books called Christmas Holiday Swap. If this is interesting to you, I do have 2 previous years that I've done this. You can go back and watch last year's video where I read 5 books with Santa Baby in the title, and you can go back and watch my 2-year ago video that is 4 books called All I Want for Christmas, with a bonus 5th book that got its own video right afterward. I'm so glad that you joined me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I will definitely be making another one like this next year, and I have a whole year worth of fun videos lined up for 2026. So be sure to subscribe and like the video if you liked it, and let me know if you read Christmas romances, or if you just prefer to watch other people talk about them. Feel free to follow my Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, Storygraph, etc., all of which are Emily at Midnight and are linked in the description below. I also just spent far too much time on an incredibly long review of every single difference between the Wicked movie and the book that it was based on. So if you're interested, if you liked the Wicked movie and want to see someone talk in great detail and many, many laughs about that book, definitely check that video out. Please show it some love. I worked really hard on it, and honestly, I kind of regret it because it took so much time, but it's so fun. I'm proud of that video, so definitely go show it some love. And with that, all I have left to say is have a wonderful day, treat people with respect, and pick up a book.